Good evening, everyone. We're delighted to welcome you to the Royal Academy of Dance this evening in the Ord Jebsen Studio Theatre. Welcome to audience members in person, also online. It's the McNicol Ballet Collective's first live stream event this evening, but it's part of the RAD Members Event Series. So many of you might know that Andrew McNicol founded the McNicol Ballet Collective. He was also commissioned by the RAD for their flagship international competition, the Fontaine, last year. So they're delighted to welcome him back and have an insight into his creative process. The collective is now in its 5th year, and it's all about the new. So it's devoted and dedicated to bringing the new for the creative process. So that isn't just choreography, but it's also about costumes, staging, lighting, and music. So this evening's event is very much about the relationship between the music and the dance. So we'll get the opportunity to speak with the composer and hear some of the wonderful score. As well as that, we will see 2 rehearsals with the dancers. When I'm not hosting events like this is actually a one-off and very first time for me this evening. I'm rehearsal director for the collective, and I have to say something that's really wonderful. It's only 8 dancers, but each of them, they come from such a mix of experiences, and so each of them individually brings something really exciting to the collective then as a whole. So you'll get to see 2 rehearsals with them. You'll hear a little bit from them. You'll hear from Andrew, Jeremy the composer, and obviously I will be hosting you throughout this whole event. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Andrew and Hamish.
Okay, thank you. Great, thank you very much. So we're going to use this as a real working rehearsal, and I thought it would be interesting to start with the end of the ballet, towards the end of the ballet. So this is a section with Hamish, the wonderful Hamish, who I first met as a student in English National Ballet School. So it's great to be working with him now with the collective. And so by this point in the ballet, we've gone on quite an experience, and this is very much, we were sort of describing it as spring. You'll hear musically, it's quite optimistic, it's quite hopeful. And we were talking a lot about this kind of progression. So starting almost quite human, quite small in terms of the gesture, and then building as the piece goes on. So this is great for me because I'm going to use all the rehearsal time I can get. So let's just talk it through from the beginning, and then we'll get into it a little bit. So we imagine we've done the first little transition. So just from once Winnie's exited, and the first thing that you do, so you're here, exactly, easy. Good, good. So from here, I think you want to feel like the ground is moving. So you want to feel like it's something happening to you. So you're in the space, you're walking, and it's something that happens to you, as opposed to creating the movement. Feel like it's coming a little bit from underneath, exactly. And the stop is like a question, a thought, an idea. Yeah, so let's see if we can draw that out a little bit more. So you start, great, and go on. Great. Good, boom. So Winnie, one of the other dancers, has just exited this way. So this whole first part, even though she's not there, it's in relation to her. So all of this first part, I need to see the intensity of the focus. Exactly, exactly. Great. Good. You did this so nicely today. So let's see, after the pirouette from here, a little bit more suspension right at the end. Delay, and that's it. Great, great. And as the theme of this evening is all about the music, let's see if we can draw that out a little bit. So you have the delay, and then try to get a little bit more speed afterwards. So again, we feel the punctuation. That's it, that's it, that's it. And I think, originally, from here, this first jump, traveling back also. So you feel like you're being pulled a little bit more in the air. Yeah? Yes, see, I remember too. Delay, travel, that's it, that's it, that's it, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So this whole thing feels like there's some kind of force, some kind of wind, something that's obliging you to move. So you're not creating the movement, you're reacting, responding to something. Yeah, let's continue on. Good. Here, okay, here. The turn is great. Let's see if we can find a little bit more. Yeah, like so for this whole thing, the idea that the ground is moving, you're responding, part of the way we illustrate that is to do with your not being on axis. So it's a little bit more feeling of off axis in the in-between moments. Yeah? Yeah, of course, it makes the turn harder, but that's the idea. Yeah? Great. That's it. Nice. Good. And then here again, it's a reference to the exit that Winnie has made. So again, all of these stops, all of these moments, try to land that a little bit more, yeah? With your focus. So from here, good, da, yes, yeah, great. And then here I was thinking today, so I should say we've already had a run through today, so I know you've already done it once, and I was thinking about this moment. By the time we get to here, we're in the flow of the piece, and this is where I think you can feel a little bit more, like we want to see the pleasure of it a bit more. So from here, yeah, right. That's it, that's it, that's it. So exactly. And then right on that beautiful chord, as you're getting, boom, nice. And can you delay? Same thing there from here. You're already off axis. Yes, great. Good. This is nice. Yes, yeah. And I think, the other thing that we were talking a lot about was the quality of the stillness of the moments in between. So here's a great example. You have this little stop, although it's not quite a stop. So it's already, there's still movement. Yes, yeah. And the movement is like an idea linking to the next thing. So from here, right, yes, yes. Good. Great, great. Yeah. Good. And then nothing. So after all of that, you do the last thing here, and then it's like nothing happened. You're in the space, and something else takes over again. So from here, very human, and then something, yeah, yeah. You want to feel like you're walking this way. You want to feel like something's calling you back. That's it. That's it, that's it, that's it. So we feel like a little bit more this push and pull. Your intention, your direction is very much about following this pathway, but something else is moving you. Yeah? That's right. That's it. That's it. Yeah? I completely forgot to say as well that one thing that's incredibly exciting is that we have 4 live musicians. So if you can imagine, they're here on stage. So I think as we have the luxury of having live music as well, not today, but for the performances, anything that you're doing here, you can reference, you can acknowledge their presence. Yeah. And I think it's that thing of it's not just a question of looking, but what they're playing is what you're feeling. So they're part of that world. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Great. All right. Good. And then just finally, before we do it with the music, which hopefully will make more sense, any of these moments, like because we have the musicians here, audience is obviously there, I think you want to feel like you're almost doing this in the round. So it feels like for you less of a proscenium and more about that you're existing in relation to the music, this space, so it feels less square. Yeah? That's it. That's it. Great. Yeah? Good. All right. I think we should give it a go with music. Yeah? So we'll let the 4 first bars play, and then we'll pick it up from this moment. All right, let's go with the music. Thank you.
while Hamish is catching his breath, it's the perfect opportunity to just ask him a couple of questions about the choreographic process. You're back on, I'm afraid. Really well done. Wonderful to see that. And obviously, I saw the creative process kind of happening. But perhaps you could tell us a little bit about, once you've had a moment, how the creative process was for you. I mean, having a whole solo made just for you. Yeah. And that's me.
Yeah. No, I think it's been amazing having this score. It's been composed for us, and working with Andrew. He's using the music so well. I think one thing that really struck me was how it's not about the steps, but it's about the rhythms he's using. And sometimes it's even quite a simple step, but how he's interpreting the rhythm, it sometimes goes against the music. And I feel like I've learned a lot watching him create. It's been a real privilege to be able to witness this and to have something made on me. So thank you, Andrew. Thank you for all of your words of advice. And thank you, Jeremy. It's very nice music.
Well, so that's all the good stuff. Maybe you could tell us, though, like, what have the challenges been, if there's been any?
Yeah, I think the challenges, for me, I think, is how I'm linking the movements. So it's not so much what I have to hit, but it's sometimes where I need to release more in the body, and this will actually create a much bigger effect. Sometimes it's not about using as much energy as you can to hit a certain note in the music, but how we can release. And actually, Andrew talks a lot about where the movement is initiated from. Sometimes it's the head, as you've seen. He talks a lot about where, and the head will actually lead you into something. And it's not always, because I sometimes get stuck on this dynamic, but it's actually about learning to make those more effective, the hits, with something slow. So yeah, it's been really nice. Yeah.
Sounds like you've learned then as a kind of a dancer, but also choreographer with those different aspects.
Yeah. I mean, I worked with Andrew at school 4 years ago, so I had kind of an idea of what what he would get me to do, but I felt like it's like completely different to what I even expected, because he keeps reinventing his style. But it's true. It's I think this solo he kind of went with my natural quirks, I would say. Sometimes I would do something, I said, doesn't this look uncoordinated? And he'd say, oh, no, I quite like it. Maybe we work with it. And then sometimes actually those moments have become parts of the solo, which I feel work actually really nicely, because it's something that he's kind of used something strange how I've interpreted the movement, and he's kind of gone with it. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, so he's really making it for you rather than steps that you have to do in a particular way.
Yeah, of course. It's been really nice. He said at the beginning, he said, I want to make something that's quite Hamish-esque. And we've kind of tried to define that in this solo. So this is good. Yeah.
I think you can agree it was great. So another welcome for Hamish. We'll let you rest. So now we're going to, having heard some of the score, we're going to welcome Jeremy, the wonderful composer, to the stage. I'll pass. You've got a mic. You're good. I'm going to hold. No, that's great. So.
Oh, yeah, we've got too many.
We've got so many mics. Well, I'm going to place this mic here. So Jeremy.
Yes.
We had a chat earlier, and it sounds like making music for dance is quite different from the ordinary.
Yeah.
Just music for music's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps before, though, we get into that, we could begin with, how did the collaboration between you and Andrew start?
I first met Andrew last year. We were both working on... Is this good, this volume? Yeah. We were both working on a triple bill in America, in Chicago, with the Joffrey Ballet. And Andrew was working with another composer and I was working with another choreographer. But we met, and then he asked me to come and work with him on a course he was running for choreographers and composers to work together. So there were 3 pairs of composers, and I was kind of mentoring the composers.
And I get the impression that perhaps you realised it was a good combination.
Well, we spent a long time talking about music for dance. Every evening we talked for about 4 hours about writing for dance and how important we think it is.
And is that how the idea was formed for the kind of Liquid Life, the new
No.
school?
In fact, I had no idea he was going to. I thought he was asking me to help as a sort of teacher, but then he called me later on and said he was making this new piece. Would I be interested in writing the music for it? But that was much later.
Okay. But you'd already built that relationship to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the piece of music that we just heard, you were telling me a little bit about the kind of idea behind it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny what Hamish was saying and what Andrew was saying as well, because the inspiration for it was really from a film. I don't know if you know the film American Beauty, but there's a scene about 2/3 of the way through where one of the characters has made a video of a plastic bag blowing in the wind. And believe it or not, that was my inspiration for starting that piece. I wanted it to feel, and it was exactly what Andrew was saying to Hamish, that I wanted it to feel as though the dancer is being carried on life's currents, and it's kind of the music that makes him dance. He's not sort of fitting his dance back onto the music. So it was this idea of lightness, because in the film it kind of appears that the bag is dancing. So Hamish is a plastic bag in this analogy.
And so you had that idea
Yeah.
inspired by this. How do you then practically begin the process of actually making something with that idea?
Well, it's a lot of sitting in my studio, banging my head against the wall. But it is. I mean, there's sort of techniques. I wanted it to have this sort of ultra light feeling, like sort of feather light. So you can choose particular instruments for that. You probably heard the piano and the harp are doing the same thing, and then there's very high strings, and then there are these big low string swells that kind of keep it grounded and keep it sort of anchored to the ground. Otherwise, it would just fly off potentially.
As Hamish would.
Exactly.
So then when it comes to the live performances, Andrew mentioned we'll have the string quartet.
Yeah, we do.
How is it, that blend then of using technology as well as live musicians?
Well, the way I'm doing it is that we have 4 string players over there, and but there's a lot of pre-recording. So there's some pre-recording of orchestral instruments and synthesizers and percussion and all kinds of things that go together to make the whole score. But the difficulty is actually synchronizing everything together, and that's what we were doing yesterday, trying to work out a way of the players being able to sit over there, hear the music from the speakers, and play in time with it, which is quite tricky.
And how did they do yesterday?
We got there in the end. It sounded great by the end. In fact, funnily enough, playing it, just hearing it just then, it sounded slightly less, well, it sounded a lot less energetic, actually. You lose so much of the energy, and there's something that happens when there are live musicians interacting in a way with the dancers that is, you can't get any other way.
Yeah, it's magic.
It is.
And so this being created specifically for dance then, sort of what I said at the beginning, there's maybe particular challenges or things you need to consider when you're creating music for dance. You have the idea, but then...
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing I try and talk to the dancers a lot as well, and I think something they often say to me is that they need pulse in music, some sort of pulse or some sort of rhythm, something for them to feel. And because I have a background in writing music for TV, which is very often, in order to not get in the way of dialogue, for example, the music's just very still and serene and calm, and you can't really have that, I don't think, ballet. So I'm always trying to find a way, even if it's a small or subtle way of providing pulse. Because the dancers often say that the music makes them want to move if it's, written well.
Yeah. So you have to kind of test yourself and push yourself in a different way as a composer when creating for dance?
Yeah, I think the music has to be so alive for dance. It has to have its own character, it kind of has to have its own identity, and it has to speak a bit more than a lot of music that is applied to other things, TV or film or whatever. I think it has to have essentially quite a different character.
Yeah. And which do you find you enjoy more?
I love writing for dance. I've only been doing it a few years, but it's what I love to do.
Well, thank you. Really interesting to hear. I don't think we often get to hear kind of that side of things. That you have made it sound like yours and Andrew's relationship was all rosy. I'm wondering if maybe we could hear Andrew's side of things. We'll welcome Andrew to the stage. And
Thank you.
so, and just so you know, if there's time, I will open up to the audience for one or two questions, if we have time, to either Andrew or Jeremy. But I guess I thought I'd ask you first, with the maybe additional challenges it might bring for yourself as choreographer and director, commissioning a new score, why do that rather than use existing music?
I think, as I said at the beginning, this year it's the 5th year anniversary of the collective, and everything that we've done up until this point, all of the work that we've created, has been very much musically driven. Music and the dancers, the people, has always been the inspiration for me that's consistent through all my work. And so particularly with the collective for this celebration, for this 5th year anniversary, commissioning music was always the goal. So it's wonderful that we're able to do it. And I think the reason why is that with something that is commissioned, it's new, it's unknown, and there's something totally terrifying and really appealing at the same time when all of the elements of a ballet are new and not some things existing that you're responding to, but are new. And I think, the other thing is that as a choreographer, what's really nice is to have conversations with collaborators. And, when something's existing, if a piece of music is existing, there's a map, there's a kind of journey, an emotional journey mapped out. And it's been really exciting to have to figure that out when it doesn't exist. What kind of journey do we want to go on? How long does an idea, whether it's musical or physical or a movement idea, like how long does it last? How long do we need? How long does the audience need to get that idea and then move on to something else? So I think with new music, the challenges are enhanced in many ways, but the exciting thing is to be able to have conversation and to be able to discuss that with somebody, not just in silo as a choreographer, and that's been really exciting.
So how did you then decide, or what do you look for in a collaborator?
Well, I think, I think this is true of all collaborators. Like when you invite somebody to collaborate with, you're really saying, I want to exchange with this person. And in the case of music, Jeremy and I have been talking about this score, working on this score for the past, I don't know, eight months or so. So I think what you're really saying is that I want to be in the company of this person, I want to learn from this person, I want to exchange, I want to go on this journey of creating this thing that we don't yet know what it is. So as much as the artistic talent and interest, it's also, do I want to spend time exchanging with this person? And I think that's for me, that's why, of course, always the artistic part is essential, but it's also so much about who people are as people. And those qualities that I most admire in people, generosity, openness, exchange, frankness, they're also the qualities that I look for in dancers, in collaborators. So for me, it's about the person, and then if that aligns, usually it creates for an interesting exchange, which I hope results in a compelling piece.
And maybe you could give us a little insight into maybe, those exchanges, frank comments. What kind of comments do you, when Jeremy sends you something?
It's interesting because I don't, it's hard, but I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm just making things up here, but I think, I think when I'm excited about something, I'm quite responsive. And so the way it worked with Jeremy, it was so wonderful because he proposed lots of nuggets of different musical ideas that we had discussed. And then I think the things that I responded to, he then developed, and so we went in with those. And then there were some things which I didn't respond as much to, and sometimes they stayed in the piece, sometimes they didn't, and vice versa. So I think it's that what is exciting here, what's interesting, what feels, and what also works in the room. I mean, the beauty of having music as well is you can go in the room with dancers, with people, and just figure out whether the intellectual idea translates musically, whether it's an idea that translates physically. Is it danceable? Does it make sense? Does it read? And if not, we bin it and we move on to the next thing. And we can do that with creation, which I think is where the learning is, where the richness is. I think that's how it's been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've written slightly more than we've ended up with, so that's not
Yeah.
a bad average.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
So you knew that you had these exchanges, or you could work well together in a relationship. But did the process play out as you imagined? Because it's your first time kind of actually making something together.
I think what was fantastic is that in November of last year, we had the opportunity to have a residency. And it was really the first time I've ever done a creation where we basically had a theater for a week where we could test out lighting concepts. And at that time, Jeremy had also created some really sort of initial excerpts of different ideas. And so to start with lighting and music and no choreography and just be in a theater for a week with dancers was sort of felt like the wrong way around in some way. I've never done it in that order. And I love that because for me, I always try in every piece, every choreography, to design, if I can, the process a little bit differently. And so I didn't know how it would play out because I'd never done it like that before. And that's sort of the beauty of it. And that's the thing that's scary because it also might not work. But I think because we had that time in November, that kind of initial exploratory time, it gave us the confidence to lean into some of those ideas and trust the process. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we do have a little bit of time if there's any audience questions for either Andrew or Jeremy. Everyone's a little shut. Yes.
Every success, I hate to say this, there must be several failures. So at what point do you get to think, yes, we put this together?
So I'll just repeat back the question for the online people because they won't be able to hear you without the mic, so I'm going to do my best to remember this. So for every success, there's many failures. And would you mind repeating the rest of your question for me, please?
At what point in this development do you say to each other and the dancers, yes, we've got this, it's going to work?
Yeah.
Great. So at what point in the development do you sort of say to yourselves and each other, like, yes, this is it now, or this is a good where we've got?
Yeah.
I think musically, both I think generally speaking, the composer knows it and the choreographer knows it. You kind of have an instinct that this is right in some way, some indefinable way. There's something right about it. It may not be finished or it might not be perfect, but it is. There's enough of an idea there that's right that feels that you can continue with it.
Yeah. I think as well, the way I try to frame it for myself so that we can progress is, failures is also information. If something isn't working, usually there's a nugget of information in there which leads us to the point where something will work if we address that thing. So I try to frame it in that way so that we can continue to work. And I think you're right, it's an innate feeling, there's an instinctive feeling that it works, and I think it's to do with what I sometimes describe as like the logic of something. Like 1, 2, 3, there's a rhythm to it, it's complete. in the same way that, the phrasing of a sentence or punctuation of speaking, the phrasing of it helps make sense. So I often look for that, but I think the moments where something doesn't work, there's information there, and that's what we try to use to take the next step. I always just think about what's the next step, what can we do next, how can we concentrate this idea more? Because sometimes the idea is there, but it might feel diluted, and so sometimes it's like, how do we make that thing more concentrated? How do we give it more flavor? How do we, whatever it might be, turn up the temperature of it? So sometimes it's there, it just needs to come into focus, a little bit like a picture. Sometimes it's blurred, but it's sort of there, and it's just about how do we sharpen the focus of that to bring clarity. And I think that's often the job of the choreographer, as the person looking from the outside, seeing the kind of full picture, to do that work and then feed that back to the dancers so they have a sense of how it reads from the outside as well as the internal feeling.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I'm going to let you both go. I'm going to steal your mic, if that's all right. Thank you. And we're going to move on to just hear from two of the dancers. So, welcoming Winnie and James to the stage. So, Winnie has been with the company, or the collective, I should say, since it began, so 5 years ago. And my question to Winnie is, what's been different this time for you?
Good question. I think for every dancer, and I would say also choreographer, when you get to work with somebody for so many years, you kind of, you really learn how to, like for a dancer, how to react, how to express what they're thinking and what they want you to embody. I think with Andrew, I got to this point where it feels like comfortable in a nice way. Obviously, like right now, there are the challenges, but I can already like see what he's envisioning, and I feel like it makes it smoother, the creation process. And I also feel like he's giving me, especially this year, well, it was always like this, but I think this year, a lot of trust to make creative decisions in the process. And somehow it's very like, it sinks in a really nice way. I think also I can speak for you because I feel like we also dancing with James for so many years, we kind of like, it's easy. And when we create with Andrew, that is like a conversation that is just, it happens after the 5 years that like we just learn how to like react and how to embody what he's envisioning. So I would say that's like, I mean, besides all the extras, like the live music, the dancers, I think we have such an amazing group. But I think for me this time that was like the biggest difference.
Yeah, I feel like I can really see that in the studio play out as well. Both Winnie and James are almost like 10 steps ahead, and you really do, you can almost play out what you know Andrew wants and nothing's even been said. Yeah, great, thank you. And so James, for you, I know again you've been with the collective for a little while, but we've got the live music this time, and we had them yesterday in the studio. Did that bring anything different for you, or how's it been with the music?
Yeah, it's been absolutely wonderful. I mean, now you've met Jeremy. He's created this beautiful score for us. And to have the live musicians, honestly, for me, it changes everything, especially because this piece, it's about human touch. It's about the human senses. It's very natural to the human. So to have this added sense of the hearing, the vibrations, the energy that we can create this performance together, being on stage, it is a very wonderful experience.
Yeah. Thanks, it's really great to hear from both of you. We're going to now welcome all of the dancers on stage and Andrew for the final dance rehearsal this evening.
Great. So I thought that we would start at the end. Interestingly, again, this was a first for me. I don't usually start a creation starting at the very, very end of the piece, but what we're about to work on now is the final movement of the ballet. And the title of the music for this is We Only Have Connections. And by the time we get to this point, you've seen all of the dancers. We've set up these different relationships, these different connections. And in a way, the final movement is kind of bringing all of that together. And there's this sense of losing and finding each other, the sense of reconnecting. We spoke a lot about the reaction to responding, to touch. So let's just talk through the first little bit and see what we've got. So we take it from once you've done your entrance. So then we have the first ones kind of filtering in. So Hamish is coming in first here. And let's just see, for me, what's really important in this moment, the final moment, is the quality in which you come in. So there needs to be this feeling of being anchored, pulled towards where Winnie is. But it's that idea of a thought, something's pulling you towards. So yeah, exactly. And then the next one is coming in. Good, continue on. Great, I'll get out of the way. Good. Yeah. So also, what's really important in this moment, whenever you enter, if you're in close proximity to somebody, there needs to be an acknowledgement of them. You're aware of them. Yeah, there's an understanding that you're sharing that space. Yeah. The other thing that we're trying to achieve in this moment, there's a lot of movement references, but also just kind of postures or spatial patterns which we've set up from the beginning that you see in the very, very opening of the ballet. So when you come and see the show on April the 5th, hopefully you'll recognize things that you've seen in the beginning, the opening of the ballet, coming back. So we have this kind of circular feeling, yeah? So Hamish is coming in one more time. Good, and then the next one coming in. Great, good. Bam. Nice. Good, keep going. Good. That's it, good. Here, and little stop. Great. So let's try on this is part of the challenge of this thing. So going from something that feels quite physical, that's building, and this just very human stillness. So watch as you do this stillness, that there's not too much happening in the arms. So from here, whatever your last gesture is, just I think it's more a question of the transfer of your weight and sensing this pull, this connection. Yeah? So let's continue on from there. So you've got the little stillness. Good. And we go on, and shoom. T, and one. T, and one. Da-dum. Good one. T, easy one. T and one. T and push. T, good one. T and hop. Good, keep it going. 2 and 1. Into lift 1. T down 1. T and shut. T and 1. Okay, great. So let's just look at this little moment here. Again, we actually spoke a lot already today about this feeling that the movement is initiated from the head. So from here, I need to see a little bit more value in that moment. That's it. Yes. He'll be there. So it's from the head. Whoom. That's it. Great. Great. And I think there's a way, if you feel like it's coming from here, and then with the trajectory of your focus, yeah, send it a little bit further away from you in space. From here, boom, away. That's it. Great. And then same thing also for you guys. Just walk through the next little bit from there. So you're here. Good. Great. Good. Break. Yeah, so let's see. I just look at this moment for a section. Once you've done this, a little bit more staccato. So this feels like a reaction. Yeah? That's it. Good. And then you melt. Yes. Exactly. Beautiful. Good. Continue on. Keep going. Let's see if we can just get a little bit more risk now on this. We have it very nice, a bit more risk. So we feel that the fall. That's it. That was nice. And then from here, a little bit more, once you've landed, a bit more, this should feel like it's coming from the back. So again, like it's happening to you a little bit. Yeah, from here, from the back. That's right. Great, great. And this is a good one for everyone. So this motif that we have quite a bit, I think for all of this to feel alive, it cannot be anticipated, you know? It needs to feel like a catch, and it does something to your spine. So from here, try to find that moment just at the last minute. Just give that a go, because everybody does that. So when you're here, just in your own time, yeah, yeah. That's it. Good, good. That's it. Yes, yes. Yeah, exactly. Good. And then let's just look at this little sequence here that we were working on earlier today. So Casey, from when you were running in, finding the foot here, this little moment. Great. That's it. Good, good. So just come back for a second. So I think what's important is the feeling of getting into it. So once you do the run, I need to feel that this is initiating everyone else's movement. So we understand that there's a consequence, there's an impact to what she's doing here. So if you're coming in, and then go ahead. Great, good, good. That's it. And then we find each other, lock. Great, good, okay, relax, relax. Laura Thier, just try this arabesque moment. It's great. I want to feel a little bit more like the heaviness of it. You know, it's like you're carrying some kind of emotional baggage. Yeah, so I see less of the step and more of the idea of weight, of heaviness, yeah, of this breaking, collapsing. That's right, that's it, yeah? And then try to stay in that idea once you've established that idea. In the transition, watch you don't step out of it to go. From here, try to stay in that same physical feeling. Yeah. So you're here, good, good, stay there. That's right, until the little reconnect. Yeah, good, we continue on. So you have the little break. That's it, and we continue and go. Going. Yeah, so it's good. I just think there can be a lot more risk in this feeling of suspension and catch. So when you're going into this first one, delay. Let's go upstage a little bit. Have fun with this, enjoy the risk. So you're here, that's great, and go ahead. And take the risk. Yes. Exactly, beautiful, yeah. And then Laura Thier, it should feel like your movement is like an echo. So from here, it's part of this feeling. So you want to feel like you're creating that sensation, that feeling as a group, as opposed to individually. So even when you prepare before you do this, you're already in that feeling. Try to initiate the feeling a bit sooner. Yeah, let's try one more time. Favorite moment. So you're here, good. And we go, you take the risk. Wow. Catch. Good. Continue on. Here, nice. You've got a moment. Good. Great. Good. So here, exactly, it's really nice what you're doing with the focus there. From here again, like less about the legs and more about feeling like something is changing in your back. Yeah, exactly. Good. And then let's continue on after that. Let's just keep it upstage slightly, yeah? And we go. Okay, into the little transition. That's it, we stay upstage. Good, just keep going. That's fine. And then we go into this little canon section and one, jump. Good. Can we just look at this moment from here? The moment that your standing leg is there, the back leg is off, so I get a little bit more this speed and suspension for the attitude. Yes. Yeah. And the trajectory of your focus is going somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. You want to feel like your front leg is escaping. Yes. Yeah. So it's speed, and then you keep the sensation going. So it's not a stop, but there's speed. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. Yeah. I think try not to go down here. It's really out the way, out the way. That's it. And there's another accent that we're slightly losing from here, this way. Again, it's from your head. Yeah, feel like the weight is falling from your head. That's it, that's it. That's right. Yeah, good. Let's continue on. Once Winnie is coming downstage. Yeah, I meant to say this earlier. It's great that we have this rehearsal now. I can just use all the time. But from here, I see too much choreography. You know, I don't really want to see picture gesture, but that there's something pushing you in the space. Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't I guess what I'm saying is like for it not to become too placed. And I think it's how you get into it, not just the end shape, but it's the feeling that you also get into it. Yeah? That's it. That's it. Yeah? Okay, so let's give it a go. So this is the final section of the ballet, which we're still sort of finessing. But you saw it here first? All right. Thank you.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here with us tonight at the Royal Academy of Dance. Thank you for the in-person audience, those online. So we've got Andrew, Jeremy, but also a huge thank you to the dancers. We've got James, Gabriel, who I didn't introduce, sorry, Casey, Theo, Winnie, who you met, Julia, you've seen Hamish, and then this is Laura over here. Wanted to make time just to say a special thanks also to our supporters and donors who've made this possible, particularly the Linbury Trust, Arts Council, Garfield Weston, Cochrane Foundation, Charles Holloway OBE, Foyle Foundation, and all of our other individual supporters and donors. If you've enjoyed this evening, lucky for you, we are going on tour. So this weekend, we're going to be off to Hull. Then in London, we'll be performing at the Royal Academy of Music, not to be confused with the Royal Academy of Dance. We'll also be in Leeds as well. So I hope you leave feeling inspired and energized. And a last thank you to Andrew, Jeremy, and all of the dancers.
Thank you.
Good evening.